From commanding millions of views to almost vanishing overnight, this is the untold story of Mungai Eve. Once Kenya's digital golden girl, she went from a small village dreamer to YouTube royalty almost overnight. But just as surprisingly as her breakthrough came, so has her turmoil. Shockingly, Eve is now facing a fall so dramatic that even her fans can't believe it. But what is the real story behind all the chaos? Is Eve's downfall the result of pure bad luck, or the cost of greed and chasing clout at any price? And can Eve ever rise again? Join us as we explore the answers. From village dreams to digital queen. Born on April 6, 2000, in a small village known as Murang'a County, Kenya, Evelyn Wanjiku Mungai, better known as Mungai Eve, grew up in a background that can be considered too poor for her oversized dreams. From a young age, she showed a natural gift for speaking and storytelling. She often stood out in school debates and public speaking contests. It was clear that there was something special within the young girl which the world had not yet seen. And as one would expect, with her talents also came strong ambitions. Eve wanted to become a journalist, but like many young Kenyans, money stood in the way. After high school, Eve enrolled in media studies, determined to follow her dream, but soon dropped out because of financial struggles. Life in Murang'a had already been tough, but moving to Nairobi made things even harder. By 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic shook the world, Eve was in Nairobi doing menial jobs. She worked where she could, just to survive, but the money was never enough. At one point, she even thought about packing her bags and returning to her village, admitting defeat, but fate had other plans for her. That was when she met Bonventure Kabadi, better known as Director Trevor. At the time, Trevor was a budding videographer with an eye for talent. He quickly noticed Eve's charisma and encouraged her to step in front of the camera, believing in her even when she doubted herself. In September 2020, they both launched Eve's YouTube channel with minimal equipment, little knowledge of the industry, and absolutely no connections. They started small, recording short street interviews around Nairobi. These interviews focused on important cases and stories that were often ignored by traditional media. Their channel was like a voice to the unheard, and the Kenyan populace soon started responding with love. To the new YouTubers' surprise, the videos struck a chord with viewers way more than expected. Within days, Eve had her first 1,000 subscribers. Within weeks, tens of thousands of views began to pour in, and the channel grew stronger. Together, the couple hunted for trending topics, gave a platform to marginalized voices, and let people share their experiences in their own words. Moreover, in terms of performance, Eve was a gem. Where traditional journalists often ignored the Sheng-speaking youth of Nairobi, Eve leaned into their culture. Her interviews were lively, real, and relatable. It was journalism without the polish, journalism that felt raw and authentic. By the middle of 2021, Eve's channel had already hit 100,000 subscribers, earning her YouTube's silver play button. This achievement alone was huge for someone who just months earlier had thought about quitting. But this was only the warm-up. By the end of that year, she had over 750,000 subscribers. The numbers were mind-blowing, and so was the money. From a broke village girl, her earnings had grown up to 1.5 million shillings every month, a figure so large that most Kenyans could hardly imagine it. To put it in perspective, the average salary in the country was about 80,000 shillings, so there was no debating how far Eve had come. Eve quickly became a symbol of the digital hustle. She represented the new Kenya, where young people could create their own opportunities online. Even though she was a village girl with no degree, no big names behind her, and nothing but raw talent, she turned herself into a millionaire before she even turned 22. And beside her was Trevor, the man who had believed in her from the start. He was not only the cameraman, but also the editor, strategist, and her boyfriend. Together, they became Kenya's ultimate digital power couple. The success was bigger than they had imagined. They traveled to places they had once only seen on television. They mingled with celebrities, shook hands with politicians, and rubbed shoulders with business leaders. Eve, once a shy girl from Murang'a, now stood tall in rooms that once seemed unreachable. But as her star continued to rise, the pressures of fame also grew heavier. The public saw the glamorous Instagram posts, the designer clothes, and the celebrity interviews. However, a huge problem which they couldn't foresee was about to unfold: the cost of fame and the fall from grace. By 2022, Mungai Eve's channel had become the #1 entertainment hub in Kenya. Celebrities who once ignored her now begged to appear on her platform. For upcoming musicians and young actors, being interviewed by Eve was like holding a golden ticket to instant recognition, and the money kept flowing. There were brand deals, speaking invitations, and even offers to buy the channel. One of these offers was even as high as 10 million shillings, but Eve and Trevor refused every single one of them. According to them, the channel was their baby, and no amount of money could convince them to let it go. However, while everything looked perfect on the surface, behind the curtain, the relationship between Eve and Trevor was falling apart. By early 2023, the couple quietly broke up, yet they chose to keep working together in public, pretending that nothing had changed. But this secrecy only made things worse by creating a major battle of tension between the ex-couple. What had once been a partnership built on love and teamwork was now a business arrangement. On top of that, money became another point of conflict. From the beginning, they had agreed to split everything equally, but after their breakup, Eve began to feel that the arrangement was no longer fair. Her argument was that since she was the face of the brand and the one in front of the camera, she deserved a larger share. Well, Trevor disagreed, and their fights over revenue only deepened the rift. The situation grew even more complicated when rumors started spreading. Whispers about Eve's involvement with a wealthy Nairobi businessman made the rounds online. Trevor, who had once been her biggest supporter, now found himself constantly clashing with her both personally and professionally. The chemistry that once made them Kenya's power couple was fading fast, and even fans could sense that something had changed. But the problems didn't end there. Viewers also started noticing a shift in Eve's interview style. They complained that she was interrupting her guests more often, using clickbait titles, and appearing less interested in letting others shine. But things only got worse. Then came the last straw that would break the camel's back. We are talking about the infamous December 2023 interview with businessman Simon Kabu, which went viral for all the wrong reasons. The interview was organized to hear Simon's side of the story as he was going through a public marital crisis at the time. However, instead of focusing on his event in a professional and non-judgmental manner, Eve did not hesitate to become violent with her questions, shocking Kenyans in their entirety. She was so aggressive that she even compared him to her father's age, and the impact of this was costly. What had once been seen as her refreshing directness now looked intrusive and disrespectful. As a result, the backlash was immediate and unforgiving. Social media exploded with criticism. People accused her of chasing clout instead of doing real journalism. Even Trevor spoke out, calling the interview embarrassing and unprofessional. The criticism would have been easier to overcome if Eve had responded with humility. But instead, she doubled down and boldly said in a post, "Everything I do must trend. It is my job to make sure you guys talk about me." That single statement marked a turning point for Eve. To many fans, the humble girl from Murang'a had now been consumed by ego. And the story only gets worse from here. Breakup, rivalry, and a fragile rebuild. By early 2024, the breakup between Eve and Trevor went public in the most explosive way possible. Eve's services were no longer needed, and Trevor not only kept their channel, but also replaced her with a new host. To make matters even more dramatic, the new host was another woman named Eve Nyaga. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. It looked like Trevor was making a statement that the brand could survive without the original Mungai Eve. And sadly, he was right. For Eve, it was a devastating blow. But she was not the type to bow out quietly. Almost immediately, she launched her own new channel. To her credit, it made a strong start. Within just 5 days, she had already gained 100,000 subscribers. This showed that her star power had not completely faded. People were still curious about her, and many wanted to see what she would do next. But while the numbers looked exciting at first, the reality of maintaining that success proved difficult. Her contents were no longer the same because they lacked the effect Trevor had always brought behind the camera. Viewers noticed the difference, and views became inconsistent as a result. Fans began comparing her new work to the glory days of her old channel, and many felt it did not measure up. It became clear that Trevor's role had been more important than some people realized. Then came the moment that turned her situation from shaky to disastrous. In February 2024, during a podcast appearance, Eve did more harm to her reputation by making a comment that would haunt her for months. She declared that she would only marry a man who earned at least 1 million shillings every month. The clip went viral almost instantly. The internet turned against her, roasting her as delusional and completely out of touch. In a country where most families survive on far less, her statement felt insulting. This was the same girl who had once been celebrated for representing the everyday struggles of Kenyan youth. Now she looked like someone who had forgotten where she came from. The relatable image she had once built crumbled overnight. Things got worse when her personal life became the center of public attention after this. By April 2024, Eve went public with her relationship with businessman Victor Lamech, popularly known as Shifui. With this, many had thought her love life had finally been secured. But again, the relationship soon fell apart in the most public and embarrassing way possible. The breakup was messy and played out across social media, with Shifui accusing Eve of plotting to harm him. He even went as far as sending a warning online that if anything happened to him, Eve should be the first person to be investigated. The accusations were shocking and damaging. Eve, never one to remain silent, fought back in the way she could. She released WhatsApp receipts that suggested Shifue was unstable. She even claimed that she had lent him money, turning the story around and painting herself as the victim. But on this, the public was divided. Some believed her, while others thought it was another attempt at damage control. Regardless of which side people chose, the truth was that her reputation suffered further. The once inspirational figure now seemed trapped in endless drama. By May 2024, the pressure had taken its toll. Eve went completely silent on social media. For a woman once known for daily uploads, constant updates, and an ever-present online personality, her silence spoke louder than words. Fans speculated about her mental health, her finances, and whether she was simply giving up. 2025. Rumors, burnout, and a fight for relevance. Now, if 2024 was a storm, 2025 did not bring much sunshine either. At the start of the year, whispers began to circulate that Eve was struggling with burnout and even depression. The once unstoppable hustler seemed weighed down by the very fame she had fought so hard to build. By the middle of the year, she admitted that she needed a break to protect her mental health. In August, she announced that she would be taking a social media hiatus. She explained that the negativity online and the constant toll of fame had become too heavy to carry. She also hinted that she was seeking spiritual renewal, which suggested that she was rethinking not just her career, but her entire life direction. But the internet is not a kind place. While she tried to step back, rumors only grew louder. In September 2025, viral posts began spreading claims that Eve was depressed, regretted leaving Trevor, and was begging him for forgiveness. These claims painted her as desperate and broken, and Eve reacted sharply. She shot back hard, calling the rumors very fake news. She mocked the idea that she would ever make such a statement and made it clear she was not crawling back to anyone. Trevor, however, did little to ease the tension. In a recent interview, he fueled the narrative by insisting that Kenyans were punishing Eve for losing touch with ordinary fans. He pointed to her infamous comments about money, such as refusing to date anyone earning less than 500,000 shillings a month, as proof that she had alienated her audience. His words hit hard because they echoed what many fans were already thinking. At the same time, Eve found herself in yet another controversy. This time, it was about her threats to leak private messages from married men who had allegedly sent her inappropriate content. Some of her fans saw this as a bold move, a way of fighting back against harassment and reclaiming control of her narrative. Others, however, saw it as another attempt to chase clout and grab headlines. Instead of rebuilding her brand, it only deepened the divide between her supporters and her critics. So where does this leave her? In just 5 years, Mungai Eve has lived through the full spectrum of digital fame. She has gone from a broke dropout to a millionaire YouTuber. She has gone from Kenya's sweetheart to a cautionary tale. She has gone from relationship goals with Trevor to being locked in a bitter rivalry with him. She has gone from being celebrated for her interviews to being condemned for her controversies. Her story is nothing short of dramatic. What her journey shows is the double-edged nature of the creator economy. Social media has the power to transform lives in ways that traditional paths never could, but it offers no safety nets. One wrong step can undo years of hard work. Fame is fragile, and audiences can be both loyal and ruthless. Eve's story also shines a light on the mental pressure that comes with constant visibility, the pressure to trend every day, the temptation to trade depth for quick clicks, and the weight of public judgment can break even the strongest personalities. It is a reminder that behind every influencer is a human being carrying invisible battles. And yet, even with everything that has happened, a comeback is not impossible for Eve. She still commands attention. She still sparks debate. She still has the charisma that first captured Kenya's heart. But the question remains, will Eve rebuild with humility, or will she continue chasing clout until there is nothing left? What do you think? Is her fall deserved, or just the price of being in the spotlight? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe, and stay tuned for more deep diving videos.